Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Hare Krishna Project podcast. This is episode number 171. Yes, we've made it to our 171st episode without being struck off air, without any episodes going missing, or without anyone trying to take us off air, which is fantastic. And we're still on that kind of road to somewhere. We're still climbing up that ladder. As you know, this was the podcast that was meant to go past the 10th episode. So I am delighted that we've made it to episode 171. Um, I'm grateful to our ever growing audience for tuning in every week. Wherever you are in the world, thank you for tuning in. Do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And or if you're watching this on Facebook, which is the other location that you can watch this podcast, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page, where you can be kept updated, not just about this podcast, which is one of the things that we do, but also about all the other activities we do at the Hare Krishna Project. As you know, we do Hare Krishna festivals, we do school programs, we do book distribution, like our guest, which you'll find out in a moment, and all those wonderful things that keep me busy and keep me out of trouble. Okay, episode 171. My goodness. We're going back to the good old US of A this week. It's that country that we still hear about in the UK news on a daily basis, and sometimes I wonder why, but it's always in the UK news, the USA. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome our guest this week. It's Babhru Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Dhanyavad Prabhu. Thank you for having
Dandavat
me.
pranams. No worries. It's great to have you with us. And actually, Babhru, you're my favorite type of guest because I don't really know you very well, which means that when you give the answers, I will be as surprised as the audience about what you say. Wow, I didn't know that. So I love this type of conversation, and we're recording it, which is great. Um,
Mhm.
and also the name Babhru, I was just saying to Babhru Prabhu before we hit the record button, certainly within the Hare Krishna community, he's the first Babhru that I've ever met. So wonderful. Okay, Babhru Prabhu, let's start with the first question. It's the nice, easy question that every guest gets just to warm them up. Please tell us a little bit about you and where you are from.
Well, Hare Krishna. Um, I'm from USA, as you stated. Um, I was born in New England, and you know, I've been a devotee for about 15 years, and yeah, I mean, I just have a simple life. My whole spiritual life has just been me distributing books around USA, around the world sometimes on occasion. I might travel to Europe or Australia, India. But as far as, life goes, it's a very simple life that I've chosen to lead. And as I was speaking with you before, is yeah, I live in a RV, do traveling book distribution, and just have a fun time doing it.
It sounds fun, actually. And Yeah, living near RV. I love the sound of that. I have to admit, I've been watching on YouTube videos about particularly Americans living in their vehicles and how what they do to adapt their vehicles. I can't believe I'm saying it on a Hare Krishna podcast, but I spent quite a bit of time recently watching them. It's fascinating terms of what people do to convert their cars or their vans into something that's
Yeah.
habitable, right? I'm intrigued that you're attracted to a simple lifestyle. Have you always been attracted to a simple lifestyle in terms of your, growing up? Were you always searching for simplicity?
Yeah, so I think yes. Um I was very like highly attracted to spiritual life since I was about 15. Real spiritual tradition that really caught my eye at a young age was Buddhism. And so throughout high school, I was very going to the local Buddhist temple, engaging very heavily in Buddhist understanding. And obviously, as most people know, uh, there's a large emphasis of simple living within Buddhism, renunciation, drawing back from the material world, and contemplation. And so those things were always very prominent in my life. And when I first became a devotee, I became a brahmachari. I was a brahmachari for about 7 years, and so that's kind of a continuation of of the bhakti side of simplicity. And even as a grihasta, I've attempted to keep my life very simple. Sometimes that hasn't always worked out, let's put it that way. but but in general, that has been my interest, and I do value it a lot. I value having the ability to wake up and chant, read, do sadhana, serve, and not have much more distractions, as have as little as necessary in that sense.
How did you, how did that transition happen between Buddhism or Buddhist philosophy and Vaishnavism? Did you visit the met the devotees and then they convinced you of theology, or how did that happen for you?
So I when I was 18, I did meet a devotee. I was at a camping festival, a music festival, and a devotee attempted to give me books. I didn't take them, but I became aware of the Hare Krishna mantra and the path of bhakti through that devotee. And through my pursuits, in the course of about a year at that time, I met different Mayavadi gurus, different sort of whatever yogis, and gradually, they always give some understanding of bhakti, like to some extent. They're talking about bhakti. It may not have a lot of philosophical backing, but they still bring it up. They bring up bhakti, they bring up God, which was not, as a Buddhist, it was not a common thing in my vocabulary. God, like the love of God. So after about a year, I took a journey to India. I felt very called to go to India, and I started living in a few different ashrams with different schools of thought. And eventually, I went to Radhanath Swami's temple in Chowpatty when I was, at that age, 19 years old. And I lived with the brahmacharis in the ashram. And I became very, I mean, it was a life-changing time period for me, but that's when I really came into the school of Bhakti, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, was at that time.
Wow, wow. And you mentioned already that you lived as a brahmachari for 7 years. Was that
Yeah.
in India? Was that somewhere else, or was that alone?
That was really just a combination of it all. I mean, I spent good amounts of time in Chowpatty, and then I came back to USA and became aware of book distribution, traveling in vans with other monks, and so that highly attracted me. So I quickly took that opportunity, and so I started doing that. And to a large extent, that's kind of what I always have done with different parties in USA. and around the world. I traveled with a few different groups of brahmacharis, and sometimes I would just travel with my Diksha Guru, Srila Bhakti Vikasa Swami Maharaj. I would travel with him in India sometimes, like that, with a group of brahmacharis. So, yeah.
Bhakti Vikas Swami Maharaj is in this life he's English, isn't he? He's British.
That's
He's
right.
from he's actually from near to where I'm sitting now. I'm in that part. I travel a lot for work.
Really?
And I think he's from where I'm kind of sitting now, if that makes sense. Um, and whenever someone tells me the name of that guru, I always want to say something positive. And I've written a few books about social issues within the Hare Krishna movement. And my first book was called Hare Krishna's in Britain.
Okay.
And for some reason, I felt the need that I wanted to
Mm.
send a copy back to Kashwari. I don't know why I felt the need to do that. Never had any connection, really. And I sent him a copy in the post. And within 2 weeks, he wrote to me to say it was a wonderful book and he really enjoyed reading it. And I was like, wow. Now he would take the time to read my book. And I do remember that with fondness. Um, Back to
Wow.
Swami, yeah. Um, so I just wanted to say that actually.
Great.
One of the few that did respond to reading my book.
Thank you for
Um,
sharing. That's beautiful. Yeah.
no worries at all. You are well known for your love of distributing books. And I actually love the fact that you live in your RV. I think that's a real kind of commitment to the cause of what we're all trying to achieve or what we're all committed to. Um, can you please tell us a bit about your book distribution, seva? Why do you do it? How does it work? Um, yeah, just kind of tell us all about your lifestyle in terms of distributing books.
Hmm. So I'll start off by saying when I was in Chowpatty in those early days that I mentioned to you, I we would hear Prabhupada's lectures frequently, whether we were cutting up sabji or whatever. Many times there would be lectures of Prabhupada, and it would come up frequently that if you want to please me, distribute my books. And when I heard that, I'm thinking, what does this mean? I really don't have any idea what that means. So, being in India, sure, we would go on Harinam, we would distribute some books, but still, I wasn't really understanding, like, that it didn't appear that that was, like, what he meant. Like, sure, it was a part of it, but it felt like there was something more to it. And so when I got back to USA after a few months, I met a devotee. I never met really devotees in USA, but when I did,
Hmm.
I went to the LA temple, and there was a devotee there he appeared as unusual, but he was eating in the Govindas, and I was asking him, like, he was describing how he lives a very simple life. And I was like, how do you afford to eat in the Govindas every day? I see you here in the Govindas like twice a day. How do you afford this? And he was like, oh, I just distribute Prabhupada's books. And I was like, that was actually the first time that I ever heard someone say that, like distribute Prabhupada's books. No one really said that in India, so I didn't really know what that meant. So I was like, so it went off in my head. I was thinking, wow, great. I need to like figure this out now. So this guy, this devotee, he was like, yeah, you can come with me. I'll train you how to do this. Let's go. Let's go like in an hour. I'll be ready. Let's go downtown. I'll show you how to do this. And so we went downtown. and I was just blown away. He distributed. We actually took the bus. He bought a box of Bhagavatam one ones. So there's about 30 books in that case, and we brought them downtown. That's the only book we had. He distributed the whole case in about 2 hours downtown LA.
Wow.
And people were giving tens, 20s, whatever. People gave plenty of money. And I was just blown away. I was thinking, dude, this is like the coolest thing. This guy just sold a whole case of Bhagavatam 1-1s, hardcovers. The people were very receptive to it. And it just seemed so simple. So I was thinking, wow, this is really cool. So then I quickly became involved with it. I very much wanted to be involved with it. And so I started doing it on my own. I actually went to go live at my parents' house in New Hampshire for the falls for a few months. And I was ordering books from the BBT and selling them on my own in my local downtown area. And it was going really well. It went really well actually. Um and then, a little bit later, I came in contact with the traveling book distributor parties, and they invited me to join them. And so I joined them. I did that for some time. And then I bought my own van when I was still a Brahmachari. I bought my own Sprinter van and had my own party. And so we did like that for a few years, 4 or 5 more years. And then yeah, so that was kind of, the general, that was like the first like 7, like the Brahmachari years, the first 7 years. That was my book distribution. And then I kept going on with it in Grihastha life. It's always remained my profession. I've taken it, and some devotees criticize this, but I believe from what I've seen of Prabhupada's statements and from my understanding of the philosophy is that I want to do what is spiritual. And so I have faith if this is a spiritual thing, and Prabhupada says it in his own words, he says, if you sell my books, you won't have any financial problem. So I'm thinking, even in my Grihastha life, I'm thinking, this is my career. I don't want to do any other mundane career. And so I kept on with it, and it's worked out just fine. Yeah, I'm not the richest guy, but I've always had plenty to maintain myself. I was married for some time, and it was okay. We rented houses, we did whatever, we traveled to India. We were always okay, And so I've just had that conviction. I don't care to get a mundane job. And I'm very happy doing like this, and it's a very fun, very spiritually enlivening life for me, because for me, I don't care so much. I don't. It's too much for me to work a mundane job, 9 to 5 for whatever. I just can't do it. It's better for me to just not even exist than to do that. And that's just my position, but it's different for other people. But for me, I can't do that. So I do books like, 9 to 5, no problem. It's very fun for me. I don't have an issue with that. So yeah.
I know here in the UK, I know a number of devotees who also distribute books full time, and they tell me it's very rewarding, it's very fulfilling, and I actually think it's fantastic. I don't have a problem with it. I know some other devotees do have a problem with it, which they shouldn't if you think about it. I don't have a problem with somebody distributing books full time, taking a bit of an income from that, or a stipend or a profit, whatever word you want to use, to cover your own expenses and cover your own lifestyle. I think if that helps you to do that full time, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Krishna consciousness isn't necessarily about giving things up. It's about calculating everything to serve Krishna. And if you're if you're good at selling books, if you're good at there's an expression in England, if you've got the gift of the gab, if you're good at talking to people, um,
Uh,
you know, why not do it for Krishna? Why not do it
yeah,
full time? If you're able to receive an income through distributing books full time, you must be good at distributing books.
yeah,
It's logical.
yeah,
You're not bad at it, are you? You must be good at it. So use
uh,
your skills and your talents and your abilities to serve Prabhupada and Krishna in that way. Um, and just out of interest, I mean, how many books do you distribute per day, per week, per year? Do you have any kind of stats?
yeah. So, well, I do it very, very regularly. So I do books about 6 to 7 days a week. I would say probably six on average, 5 to 6, and on each given day. So I sell them in stacks. So it's usually a small book like Perfection of Yoga, and then I do a medium book like Sri Isopanishad or something like that, a little bit thicker. And then I do a hardcover on the back. So last year I was doing Bhagavatam 1:1s, which I liked a lot. This year I'm doing hardcover Science of Self-Realization. So I do it in the stack, and on like a general day, if I put in the right amount of time, like I typically do like 5 hours a day. That's pretty typical for me. And so I'll do about 30 full stacks, 20 to 30 full stacks a day. And of course, there will be a lot of small ones. People just want a small one like that. So, but about 20 to 30 full stacks a day.
Wow. I don't know if that's good, but it sounds good. You know what I mean by good? I don't know if compared to others, it sounds like that's a good amount. So how many books are in a stack?
Yeah, good. Hardcover. So it's about like 25 to 30 hardcover books, and then a lot of small books, and so it's good. It's very solid. And talking with my peers, around the country, especially like I mean it's very good. It's a very solid amount, and yeah, it's I feel very fortunate that I have this gift, because a lot of people, they wish they had this gift, and I wish they did too, because I don't want them to, if they don't want to work a mundane job, I don't want them to. And I try to give help to others, to give them some guidance in it and to help them. And but there's about, I would say there's about 7 or 8 other grihasta individuals in USA that are doing like this, that can do this quantity and be very focused. And it's, yeah, there's a few others.
Well, I think the population of the USA is something like 330 million. I'm sad enough to know that. So there shouldn't be any competition. There's plenty of people to reach out to. You often hear within the devotee
Yeah.
community, there's this, people are very territorial, aren't they, about where you open temples, where
Yeah.
you open namahatas, and where you're preaching. In the UK,
Yeah.
we have a population of 68 million. And I say to different devotees, don't argue
Okay.
over territory or patches or buildings. There's enough people to go around. Like the same in the USA. There's there's there's,
Yeah.
there's 330 million people in the USA, and there's a lot of books to distribute. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
a lot of work to be done. Um,
Mhm.
and talking about books, you have written your own book. You are an author and a writer yourself. Uh, Please tell us a bit about your own book, um, and what inspired you to write it.
Well, so my book is called Divine Intoxication, and it's the biography of Srila Akinchana Krishnadas Babuji Maharaj, who was a very dear friend of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And all the early devotees, of course, many Prabhupada disciples know who Babuji Maharaj is, and especially the early ones that were there in Vrindavan and Mayapur in the earlier days. They saw how much Prabhupada and Krishnadas Babaji and Srila Sridhar Maharaj, how much they all interacted together. And so, briefly, this book, I became very inspired about. I was always very inspired about the acharyas, about hearing about the biographies of the acharyas, the Goswamis, really all devotees. It was a very important thing to me in my spiritual life. And I always emphasize it to all people because it's very tangible. It's much more closer to home in my view than hearing Bhagavatam. There's a lot of emphasis on hearing Bhagavatam, especially when you're a new devotee, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and for good reason. But I personally feel there's not enough emphasis on hearing about the lives of the acharyas and of devotees. And that also includes Chaitanya Charitamrita. As a new devotee, there should be no issue with this. And the reason why I'm so adamant on this is because one can pick up the stories of the Bhagavatam, especially as a Westerner, and they can think, this is really fantastic. And, like, I don't have a lot of like connection with this. It seems like another, religious text, very kind of like wild stories and, stuff like that. But when you hear these stories of the acharyas, it's very real. Like their convictions in chanting, in meditation on Krishna and serving, and to hear their ideals and their conceptions and all of this, I find it very, very accessible. And of course, we hear all the time that Krishna he manifests himself through the devotee. And so it's easier to approach Krishna through his devotee than to Krishna himself. And so I personally feel very strongly about that. And so when I started hearing stories about Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj, and I would find some small stories about him online or whatever. And I was thinking, why is there no book written about this personality? He was very famous in the Gaudiya Math because he was the early disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And he was one of the only Bhajananandi devotees that was completely authorized by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And in my book, there's so many stories there, but some of them are well known that this was not the mood of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His mood was preaching, seva, Harinam, distributing pamphlets like that. So this was a very common thing in the Gaudiya Math, not sitting and chanting all day. It just was not a commonly accepted thing. And so Babaji Maharaj was immediately very, very intense about chanting all day. And many devotees would criticize him about this. And Bhaktisiddhanta would defend him every time. And so there's some very heart-rendering stories in my book about that. But yeah, that's the idea. He was very special. And Prabhupada himself said he was a pure devotee. He's actually I've seen him glorify many exalted devotees, but I've never seen him use the word Paramahansa. He uses the word Paramahansa in regards to Babuji Maharaj. So I've never seen that in regards to any other devotee. And so for all these reasons, I was thinking there has to be something done about this. This has to be good, more access for this person. So I talked to my own Gurudev and Satyaraj Prabhu, who I had a connection with for some time due to literary interests. And Satyaraj Prabhu told me, you know what, it's a great idea to write this book. And I asked him to write it. I said, you've done so many good works on Vaishnavas in the past. So can you please write something on Babuji Maharaj? And he said, well, it's an amazing idea, but I don't really have the time. It seems like you do, so probably you should do it. And so I was thinking, you know what? Whatever, I'll do it. So I started interviewing many devotees, collecting from India, around the world, everyone. And it took about 5 years to really get it all together. And I printed the first edition and it sold out very quickly. It sold 300 copies in about a month. And then I did more research and I added about 100 pages of stories. And yeah, second edition sold out too very quickly. And so, yeah, that was last time I printed it was in 2019. So it's been sold out for a long time. And many ISKCON gurus, Gaudiya Math gurus, they all read it. They all glorified it. They all think it's amazing. And it is amazing, not because I wrote it, but because the subject matter is very amazing. It will touch your heart. It will make your heart dance with love of God, actually. So yeah, that's why I did it. And I'm very indebted to Babuji Maharaj for giving me that opportunity.
I'm making an assumption that before your book, there were no other books about Babaji Maharaj, were there?
Yeah, there was none. And that's why I did it, is
Wow.
because, yeah, zero. You have them about everyone else, but not Babaji Maharaj. So I'm thinking, what the heck?
Wow. Wow. I personally find that very inspiring. You know, somebody who is from the kind of has a background in the ISKCON community. You know, we follow a particular Bhakti line, and to feel as inspired as you did to write a biography about Babaji Maharaj, who most devotees within ISKCON and the wider Gaudiya community would have not have heard of. I think it's really fascinating, and it's a real testament to you and your commitment to wanting to share his story, because um, I think I mean this in a positive way. You've taken a chance and you've kind of written something that's on the periphery, and I love that. You know, it wasn't just another book about bhakti, you know, why we should chant Hare Krishna, you know, why we should get along and why we should, you know, spread the word. But actually, you've written something that's quite niche, which means it's going to be really special for people to read. Um, I mean, I have to admit I've not read your book, but I feel inspired to do so. You know, I'm aware of Babaji Maharaj and a bit about him.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe I can get a copy. Maybe I'll need to read a copy at some point. Uh, and yeah, to find out about. Also,
So I'll
I'm
say
actually.
this.
Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'll just say this before I forget. The ebook is available on Amazon for about $8. So that's a pretty good option for just about everyone.
Yeah. And what I'll do, I'll put a link with this recording to your ebook. so people can have a look at that. Uh, I did I did see it before today's podcast just to brief myself on what you've done. Because I love it when people tell me that they've written a book. I love to meet fellow authors, and I want to find out, what you've written, and that gives me insight into you as well as an author. What is it that you're interested in? So I did do a bit of research before we did this today. Um, okay. I'd love to talk a bit now about your website. I've looked at your website and I really like it. I love it actually. And I also love the name, the Heart of Baji. It sounds very pure. I just love the name. It really resonates with me. What inspired you to set up your own online platform? And why, why should people visit it? What is it? Tell us about your website and why people should be encouraged to visit it.
Well, initially, I got the inspiration, um, just because I consider myself a very I contemplate a lot. I'm not just a person that just will read something and not really think about it more than what is on the page. And so, especially with philosophy, I think it's safe to say that I have a very strong proclivity towards philosophical subject matter, given my early Buddhist um, experiences. And, everyone has their nature, as we understand, everyone has their nature. And of course, it's a little odd in Kali Yuga where Sudra, Vaishya, Brahmin, Kshatriya, there's mixtures. But, I the Brahmin quality to be absorbed in philosophical subject matter like that. So, um, not that I'm better than anyone because I'm not, and any Vaishnav is way superior than me. But so this philosophy has always been very intriguing to me. And as I went on in spiritual life, in the bhakti institutions and being around devotees, I did see discrepancies in teachings, not in the actual teachings of the books, but in teachings of the devotees and the application of the Siddhanta into life, into practical life, into philosophical life. I started to see some things that just didn't really add up for me. And so I had to go deeper into this, thinking about it very deeply. And that is and I felt that Krishna was giving me many realizations about things that some devotees may not really consider, not because it's some big secret,
Hmm.
but oftentimes some of the most powerful points of philosophy are very simple and very straightforward, but devotees refuse to see that. They prefer to not see the obvious self-evident conclusions, really. And so I started. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I'm understanding even during our brief conversation today, I'm understanding more about you. You seem like a very independent thinker. You kind of come across as kind of a modern day sadhu. You're living in your van, you've got long hair, Uh, you just read books for a living. I think you probably, I think you probably keep yourself to yourself as well. Um, I mean, I don't know. You told me where you are in the USA, but I don't know the USA geographically very well. But I assume that you spend a lot of time maybe on your own and possibly not near other devotees. Not so much. It's funny, isn't it? Our relationship with the devoted community. Because association is meant to be so important.
Yeah.
But actually, if I'm honest as well, I love to be on my own sometimes, not have to talk to people, or not believe I'm admitting this, put on a mask, and pretend to be someone that I'm not, or that I don't feel, you know, comfortable with. So I kind of get that impression from you that you're kind of a modern day sadhu. And you just rather be on your own and do your own seva, your own kind of sadhana. Um, so I can't remember why I said that, but I'm certainly picking that up from you. And also the kind of topic of your book as well, subject matter, subject person. Um, um, okay. What I'm going to do with this podcast is to link to your website as well, so people can
Okay.
have a look. And I've had a brief look and I love it. So Heart of Bhakti, and I really hope that people can kind of discover more about the philosophy of that deepness, that essence. It's a powerful word, essence of Krishna consciousness. Um, what are your thoughts on a slightly more kind of political question? What are your thoughts on the current condition? It sounds like a medical thing, doesn't it? What are your thoughts on the current condition of the present day Hare Krishna movement around the world?
Well, yeah, that is a big question. And well, I will put it very simply and very honestly. I have kind of checked out uh from the broad interest in institutions, and I have friends in all sanghas, and I do move amongst all institutions, but I've kind of put myself in a position where I don't really have a lot of vested interest in any of them. I mean, I do have interest in seeing them succeed. Of course, I want this and I try hard in my best to help them. But at the same time, I don't, uh, I don't really, in one sense, all these institutions could fail and fall to pieces, and it would have very little, uh, like, very little substance for me. It wouldn't really matter to me so much. And of course, it's a sad thing, but I've just come to, in my own life, I've just come to take near and dear a few devotees who are very dear to me and try to serve them and try to have sadhu sangha with them. And, like I'm doing distributing books, I'm doing my small part in trying to assist Prabhupada to spread his mission. And that's about what I can do in this lifetime, aside from giving some philosophical explanations, on my website, maybe writing books in the future. I mostly really just focus on my own spiritual life, and I just don't really have like time to really get involved even with thinking about how to grow institutions, how to do anything with institutions. It's just not for me. And so I just don't really deal with it. But that doesn't mean I don't have affection for them. Like my local ISKCON temple, I have very good connection with them. They're very helpful to me in many ways. And I assist them in my way of telling people to go there. You know, that's the local temple. I tell people to go there, and people show up there, you know, due to the book distribution. And so I don't have a lot of more to say on it than that. I don't
Mm.
really care if it's good, bad, whatever. If this leader's doing, maybe this leader's corrupt, maybe this one isn't. It doesn't. None of it really matters to me. That's just where I'm at in life. So I don't really even think about it anymore.
Mm. Just out of interest, Babhru Prabhu, how long have you been around the Bhakti movement?
15 years.
Yes. Okay. I was just kind of trying to piece things together in my head, and in terms of the position that you've got to in your life, this kind of simple living, detached from institutions, detached from organizations. And I was also just trying to kind of, in my head, being analytical, trying to maybe piece that together with the mood of your own deep living. And I suddenly reminded myself that during the global lockdown around 4 or 5 years ago, I did read part of the book that your Guru Maharaj wrote called Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, which was a 3 volume book set,
Uh,
um,
yeah.
essentially about
Mm-hmm.
Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Temple. And I have to admit, I only read
Mm-hmm.
volume 2, which was about around all the different mats and all the different disciples and grand disciples and basically all of the offshoots of the Gaudiya mats. And it was very helpful when I read
Mm-hmm.
my first book about the diversity of the movement of Britain. And I was just thinking about that because it kind of, in one sense, there's a similarity, I think, in terms of your interest with a small I in looking at different groups. And also that particular book, we're looking at the whole family of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, but also at the same time not being attached to any of them. And I think that's a
Mm-hmm.
very powerful, not powerful, a very clever position to be in, to transcend
Mm-hmm.
and be detached from different groups, but also to support them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not for, there's been some challenges with that through my life. Some people don't like me because of that. And actually, I'm not going to say some, I'd say quite a bit of people don't like me because of that reason. And, that's but that's okay. Like I said, I have friends everywhere, and that's real friends are the ones who are going to really be there with you and try to understand you as a person, as a sincere sadhaka, and not be all crazy over if like I mean, because at the end of the day, it's like I don't want to be sectarian, and I try to find value wherever I go, whatever institution, whatever devotees I get in contact with. I feel there's value there. And so I want to get that value in whatever situation.
Mm. Mm. I also think personally it shows how surrendered you are uh, to to Krishna's will. You're choosing, you're consciously choosing not to be attached or to be too connected to institutions and groups and mats, and you're just relying on Krishna. And that's easier said than done, but you're just relying on Krishna. And I think your lifestyle is a great testament to that. Just love the Lord and see what happens. As our Christian brothers
Yeah.
and sisters to say, just love the Lord. Um, And talking about loving the Lord, um, how do you think how can we attract Westerners to the path of life? How can we show the general public in the USA, in Europe, that this philosophy is life changing? They should at least consider taking it up.
I'm sorry, you kind of broke out during that question. Could you please repeat it?
Absolutely. How can we attract more Westerners to the path of bhakti?
That's a good question. And I definitely don't think I have all the answers to that, but I might have a few answers. And I base my answers off of what attracts me personally. Because at least in America, there's a lot of people like me. I'm not, they're kind of like seeker, maybe a little hippie type person, yogis, whatever. So there's a lot of people like that in America. And I think, when I'm on book distribution, people do ask me, why did you choose this path? Why is this valuable? People do ask me that. And briefly, I'll share an interaction I had with they're an interesting type of person. They're not the most common type here in America, but you do meet them. They're kind of like Christian yogis. Like they're Christian, but they're alternative Christians. And so they're open to other ideas. They'll read Bhagavad Gita. They think it's cool. They think it's really great, but they still have a somewhat of a fanatical idea about Jesus, and that's fine. I'm not here to tell them not to have faith in Jesus or whatever. And so I had an interaction with one of these yogi types who's a Christian, and he had been around other devotees before, and he likes devotees. He thinks they're really cool. He thinks they're very devoted to God. He thinks they're great. And so he met me the other day, and he was asking me, so, okay, Krishna came 5,000 years ago, and Jesus came 2,000 years ago. So perhaps Jesus is like the new revelation of God, like the updated version for the people of Kali Yuga or whatever. And so he was saying, like, why wouldn't you accept like the statements in the Bible that are saying I'm the light, I'm the I'm the only way, I'm the life, whatever. I don't even, like that. So he was asking me, why would you not accept that when that's the newer version of God compared to the Krishna version 5,000 years ago? And so I told him very simply, I said, look, let's not get so like dogmatic and fanatical here. We're not fanatics. You're not a fanatic. I'm not a fanatic. Like, I'm not here to say one book is right, one book is wrong. This book is better, this one's worse. But we have to understand the conception of the specific types of God and God worship. And so I told him the Krishna conception is objectively giving a higher, more detailed look into divine life. And so then we talked about a little bit about Ross theory, about the idea of friendship, conjugal love, parenthood. And I told him in the Christ conception, this is very limited. And at least according to my evidence and my information, people are attaining up to dasyaras, servitorship, in the Christ view. And I told them that's great. So, but the reason why I chose for the Krishna conception is because I feel it's giving more variety and more intense relationship with God. And like that. So that's why some people prefer the Krishna conception over the Christ conception. It's not about who came first, who came later, this and that. It's about, we have to be objective here. And he resonated with that. He thought it was a good answer. He accepted it, and he said, that makes a lot of sense. I get it. And I even told him, I just don't have any proof to say that Jesus gives up to Madhurya Ras, conjugal love, friendship, parenthood. I just don't have any proof of that. So, I'm just saying, like, this is why people prefer the Krishna, because it's more like that. And he liked it. He thought it was a good answer. And so that's what I said.
I really like your inclusive approach to explaining situations. Um, it's, I mean, I would have probably given the same answer to him as well. And I always try to emphasize to everybody where we are not sectarian. It's not like you have to join a Hare Krishna where you're going to go to hell. It doesn't work like that. So I think that's a great answer. Yeah, and the path of Bhakti, I mean, I always try to explain it as a spiritual science. It's a science. We're not the God. We're not Christian or Hindu, male or female, or conservative or liberal, or rich or poor, really. We're not any of these things. We're just labels. The soul isn't any of this. I often find that generally transcends, and it's something that people in other religious traditions don't resonate. I would say the weakness of his arguments, one of the weaknesses of his arguments, that you mentioned is that people say, well, Jesus and the Christians, Jesus, Christ and Krishna, and you have to carry on. You have Muhammad who came later, and then you had Guru Nanak, and there's others, and the most recent was actually Joseph Smith. So let's not follow Joseph Smith. Right. You're going to use that for a chronological approach, then there's more recent prophets. um, okay. Any other ideas, Babhru, on just how we can track people to the path back? I mean, you must, and all the guests I've interviewed over 4 years, you're one of the ones that meets members of the public more than anyone else. And you must have had some really meaningful conversations distributing books that we just can't imagine. Any other thoughts you can give us on how can we attract people to Krishna consciousness? Ordinary people that all the different mats we've mentioned are struggling to reach out to. What are your thoughts on how we can reach out to them?
I do think you're right. You're absolutely right that I have a lot of very powerful conversations with people almost on a daily basis. Some people cry when they meet me. Some people are like, I was about to kill myself, and now you're just here standing with me with like some books about like very inspiring thing, and now I'm all inspired. And this happens all the time. And so something that I really emphasize in the outreach situation is simplicity. And so, like, people ask me, it happens a lot. People ask me, what, like, if you had one piece of advice, for me spiritually, like, what would you tell me? And I tell them, look, okay, in this world, everyone's trying to exploit each other. It's an exploitation situation. No matter what we do, we're exploiting. We're breathing in, we're exploiting, we're taking. It's what we do. We take here. And so the soul wants to give. And so these books and this philosophy, the most powerful thing that you can realize here is that your soul is a giving unit. It's a selfless unit of wanting to give, and that's where ecstasy is. That's where real divine love for God is when we want to be selfless and give to God without anything asking in back, asking in return. And that's where you're going to find your real happiness, is in that situation, not in the egocentric taking situation. It's simple. I didn't even mention Krishna. I don't even have to, but it's just that is very practical and makes a lot of sense for pretty much anyone. And so that's what I say when people ask me that. I don't quote scriptures, Bhagavad Gita. I don't have to. Then I'm just another religious fanatic. I'm trying to help them understand something of practical value, and they'll see me. They know I'm a Krishna devotee. I just gave them a stack of books about Krishna. I don't need to tell them everything about the books. If they like what I said, they're going to read it and they're going to learn all about Krishna.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you, Babhru. I really loved your answer there, particularly when you emphasized simplicity. And and I also appreciated it when you used the word when you reminded us that we need to stop exploiting people. Uh, and because everyone can resonate with that, everyone can see, and they would have experienced being exploited, being abused. I mean, that's a big word, but you know, someone's tried to take advantage of us, someone's tried to steal something from us, or or mock us, or belittle us. Everyone's experienced that. People have all felt exploited, or ostracized, or excluded at some point in their lives. And actually, we just need to stop doing that, and everybody will resonate with that.
Yeah.
I'm loving your answers, by the way. They're very simple, but yet philosophical. You know, often when I ask people, most people get the final question, they get the same final question. How can we attract people to the path of bhakti? And a lot of people will say, well, we can organize these events and we can distribute these books, which you do, you know, and we can wear these clothes or don't wear these clothes, you know, and or use different language. But you're talking about something much deeper, you know, around simplicity. And that's I can tell that you're like this modern day sadhu that's kind of, you know, just focused on the essence of Krishna consciousness. Okay, believe it or not, we've been certainly recording. We've been recording for about 1 hour 20, I think, possibly
Okay.
1 hour 15. And I've really appreciated the conversation today. It's been a very thought-provoking conversation. Um, and I'm very pleased that I managed to persuade you to come on the podcast and share your story. Because when I looked at your Facebook profile, I was very impressed by all the photos of all the book distribution. And in one of your first messages to me on social media, you talked about not being involved with any particular map, but just kind of going between them all and, you know, being like a sofa surfer amongst the different groups, you know. And you didn't use that term. I've used that term, but I love it. Um, okay, Babhru, I'm gonna say goodbye to the viewers at home. But if you just want to stay on the line,
All right.
it's like a chat show, isn't it? Stay on the line, stay in the Zoom room. And we can have a brief debrief after.
Sounds
But
good.
I'm incredibly grateful to Babhru Prabhu for being our 171st guest on the Hare Krishna Project podcast. I don't know if there's anything super spiritual about the number 171. I have no idea. But it's a number. And I'm grateful that Babhru Prabhu was our guest this week. So to all our viewers at home, do not forget, if you're watching this on YouTube and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button so you can be kept updated about future podcasts and video productions from the Hare Krishna Project. And to those of you watching this on Facebook, if you haven't already, please do like or follow the Hare Krishna Project Facebook page. Every time that I say that, the number of likes and subscribers does go up. So it shows that you are listening, which is fantastic. So thank you. So until next week, I'll see you all soon. Thank you. Hare Krishna.